"Your sister needs a perfect wedding," Mom texted at midnight. "We're using your college money." I stared at my phone screen in complete disbelief, sitting in my cramped studio apartment near Massachusetts General Hospital, where I'd just finished a grueling 18-hour surgery rotation. The pale glow illuminated my exhausted face as reality crashed over me like ice water. She was talking about the $50,000 I'd saved working 3 jobs throughout high school. Cleaning offices at dawn, tutoring kids after school, and stocking shelves until midnight. My sister Emma barely spoke to me anymore, yet somehow expected this enormous sacrifice. I typed back carefully, keeping my voice steady, despite the rage building inside. I want her to be happy too. What Mom didn't realize was that I'd graduated Harvard Medical School completely debt-free, thanks to software patents worth millions of dollars. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat there staring at that text message. While my family assumed I was drowning in student loan debt like most medical students, I'd been quietly building a fortune since I was 16 years old. It all started during my junior year of high school when I was working at Dr. Martinez's family clinic downtown. The scheduling system was ancient, causing endless confusion with appointments, patient records, and billing. Watching the staff struggle daily with double-booked patients and lost files, I knew there had to be a better way. I spent months teaching myself advanced programming languages, staying up until 3 in the morning writing code after finishing my homework and part-time jobs. My bedroom became a makeshift tech lab filled with second-hand computer parts I'd bought with money from my weekend job at the grocery store. My parents thought I was just playing video games when they heard the keyboard clicking at all hours. The breakthrough came when I developed a comprehensive medical office management system that integrated patient scheduling, electronic health records billing, and insurance processing into one seamless platform. Unlike existing software that required expensive hardware and complicated training, mine worked on basic computers and had an intuitive interface that even technologically challenged staff could master within hours. Dr. Martinez became my first beta tester, and within weeks, his office efficiency improved dramatically. Patient wait times dropped by 60%, billing errors virtually disappeared, and staff stress levels plummeted. Word spread quickly through the local medical community, and soon other practices were asking if they could license my software. By my senior year of high school, I'd filed 3 separate patent applications with help from a lawyer who agreed to work for equity in my future company. The patent process was expensive and complicated, but I knew protecting my intellectual property was crucial for long-term success. I used every penny from my part-time jobs to pay legal fees and patent office costs. When Harvard accepted me with a full academic scholarship, I thought my financial worries were over. But I quickly discovered that even with free tuition, medical school expenses were staggering. Books, equipment, housing, food, and licensing exams cost thousands of dollars each semester. Many of my classmates took out massive loans just to survive. That's when my software patent started paying off in ways I'd never imagined. 3 major hospital chains had licensed my technology, generating steady monthly royalty payments that more than covered all my living expenses. The beauty was that once the software was developed, it required minimal maintenance while generating passive income month after month. I made a conscious decision to keep my wealth completely hidden from my family. Growing up, I'd watched how money changed people in our neighborhood. The Jenkins family won the lottery and immediately became targets for every sob story and get-rich-quick scheme in town. Their relationships crumbled under the pressure of constant financial requests from relatives and friends. I'd also observed my wealthy classmates at Harvard, many of whom had become entitled and disconnected from reality because they'd never struggled financially. They took expensive vacations for granted ordered takeout every night without checking prices and complained about minor inconveniences that would have seemed like luxuries to working-class families like mine. Maintaining a humble appearance served multiple purposes. It protected my relationships with family and friends who might treat me differently if they knew about my wealth. It kept me motivated academically because I couldn't rely on money to solve problems or buy my way out of difficult situations. Most importantly, it allowed me to observe people's true character when they thought I had nothing to offer them financially. So when my family asked about medical school expenses, I vaguely mentioned student loans and work-study programs. When they saw my modest apartment and second-hand car, they assumed I was struggling like most graduate students. I never explicitly lied, but I didn't correct their assumptions either. The scholarship money and my savings account from high school jobs became my visible safety net, the $50,000 my parents knew about and respected. They'd seen me work incredibly hard for that money-sacrificing social activities and sleep to earn every dollar. That account represented years of dedication and responsible financial planning. But now, as I read Mom's text message again, I realized that my careful strategy had backfired in the most painful way possible. By hiding my true financial situation, I'd made myself appear vulnerable to family members who thought they could take advantage of my supposed desperation. My phone buzzed again, interrupting my reflection. A second text from Mom appeared on the screen. Already transferred the money. Emma's venue needs payment tomorrow. You'll understand when you're married someday. My heart stopped as I frantically opened my banking app and discovered that my savings account had been completely emptied without my permission. Mom still had access from when I was a minor, and she'd used it to steal everything I'd worked for during high school. Before I could fully process the theft, my phone rang with Emma's number flashing on the screen. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. Her voice was sickeningly sweet when I answered, like honey dripping over broken glass. "Hey there, big sister. I hope you got Mom's message about the wedding fund. I wanted to call personally to thank you for being so generous and supportive." Her tone made my skin crawl because I could hear the calculated manipulation behind every word. "Emma, I never agreed to give you my college money. Mom took it without asking me first." I kept my voice level, trying to give her a chance to do the right thing and acknowledge the theft. But Emma's response revealed the depth of her betrayal. "Oh, come on, Lara. You know family comes first, and this wedding is the most important day of my life. Besides, the venue costs $80,000, so your $50,000 doesn't even cover everything. I figured since you're going to be making doctor money soon, you'd want to invest in your sister's happiness. $80,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. Not only had she stolen my savings, but she was planning to spend far more than I'd even saved. Her casual attitude about the massive expense revealed how little she understood about money or responsibility. Emma, that money represented 3 years of working multiple jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I earned every single dollar through sacrifice and discipline. How can you just take it like it means nothing? Her laugh was bitter and resentful. Sacrifice, please? You always got the easy path, Lara. Perfect grades came naturally to you while I had to struggle just to pass basic classes. Science fairs, academic awards, scholarship opportunities. Everything was handed to you because you're the smart one. Well, this is my moment to shine my chance to have something beautiful and special." As she described her elaborate wedding plans, I realized she'd been planning this theft for months. The venue was an exclusive country club with panoramic mountain views, the same place where celebrities and politicians held their receptions. She'd hired a photographer whose work appeared in national wedding magazines, ordered flowers imported from Holland, and selected a designer dress that cost more than most people's cars. The catering alone is $30,000 because we're serving a 7-course dinner with premium wine pairings for 200 guests. Jake's family expects elegance, and I refuse to embarrass myself with some budget reception in a church basement. The photographer is flying in from New York because his artistic vision perfectly captures the romantic atmosphere I want. And the flowers? Oh, Lara, you should see the arrangements. Cascading orchids and peonies in cream and blush tones that will transform the entire venue into a fairy tale setting. Her description revealed a level of extravagance that bordered on fantasy. This wasn't a wedding. It was a performance designed to project an image of wealth and success that neither Emma nor her fiancé actually possessed. She was using my money to fund an elaborate lie. But the real bombshell came when Emma casually mentioned the additional financial damage she'd inflicted. Oh, and I hope you don't mind, but I had to use your credit cards for some of the deposits. The dress required full payment upfront, and the band wanted their fee in advance to hold the date. Between the venue, catering, photography, flowers, music, and everything else we're looking at, about $120,000 total. My hands started shaking as I realized the full scope of her betrayal. Not only had she stolen my savings, but she'd also committed credit fraud by using my personal information to rack up massive debt. Emma had turned me into an unwilling accomplice in funding her fantasy wedding. Emma using someone else's credit cards without permission is a crime. You've committed identity theft and fraud. These aren't small mistakes. They're felonies that could destroy your future and mine. But she brushed off my concerns with frightening casualness. Don't be so dramatic. Family helps family, and you'll be making plenty of money as a doctor. Medical residents start at $60,000 a year, and attending physicians make hundreds of thousands annually. You can pay back the credit cards over a few years, and it'll barely impact your lifestyle. Her complete lack of understanding about medical training, student debt, and financial responsibility was staggering. She seemed to think that having a medical degree was like winning the lottery, guaranteeing immediate wealth and security. The reality of residency, working 80-hour weeks for minimal pay while juggling massive loan payments, was apparently beyond her comprehension. Besides, Emma continued with poisonous sweetness, family should sacrifice for each other. When I have my baby, I'll need financial support too. Stay-at-home mothers deserve help from their successful siblings. It's what families do. I nearly dropped the phone. What, baby, you're pregnant. 6 weeks along? Isn't it wonderful? This wedding is even more important now because Jake and I want to start our marriage and family with a celebration that honors our commitment. Our child will see the wedding photos someday and know that love was celebrated properly with dignity and beauty. The pregnancy revelation added another layer of complexity to an already impossible situation. Emma wasn't just stealing money for a lavish party. She was creating a foundation for ongoing financial dependency. In her mind, my medical degree meant unlimited resources for supporting her lifestyle choices indefinitely. But the cruelest twist came in her final revelation. Everyone's so proud of you for supporting the wedding, by the way. Aunt Patricia said it brought tears to her eyes when Mom told the family how you insisted on paying for everything. Uncle Robert talked about how medical school must have taught you about family values and sacrifice. Even Grandma June called to say how impressed she was with your generosity. My stomach dropped as I realized Emma had orchestrated an elaborate web of lies involving our entire extended family. She'd told everyone that I'd voluntarily donated the money, that I was enthusiastic about supporting her wedding, and that I'd even agreed to be her maid of honor. The theft wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reputation, relationships, and trust. Emma had trapped me in a nightmare scenario where confronting her theft meant publicly contradicting the generous narrative she'd created. If I tried to expose the truth, I'd look petty and selfish to relatives who believed I'd willingly supported my sister's happiness. She'd weaponized family loyalty against me, making it nearly impossible to seek justice without appearing cruel. I have to go now, but thank you again for everything. The dress fitting is tomorrow, and I can't wait for you to see how beautiful everything will be. Your sacrifice is making dreams come true. Emma hung up before I could respond, leaving me alone with the devastating realization that my own sister had destroyed my financial security and reputation in pursuit of her fantasy wedding. The next evening, I drove to my parents' house for our weekly family dinner, dreading the conversation, but knowing I had to face the situation directly. Walking through the front door felt like entering a theater where everyone except me had been given a script for a play I'd never auditioned for. Aunt Patricia rushed over the moment I entered the living room, wrapping me in a suffocating hug that reeked of her usual gardenia perfume. "Lara, sweetheart, you're absolutely glowing. Emma told us about your incredible generosity with the wedding fund. I'm so proud of how you've grown into such a caring, mature young woman." Uncle Robert clapped me on the back with his massive construction worker hands, nearly knocking me forward. "That's what family's all about, kiddo. Looking out for each other when it matters. Emma's lucky to have a sister willing to invest in her future happiness. Shows real character on your part." My cousin Jennifer bounced over with her usual manic energy, clutching a glass of wine that was clearly not her first. Emma showed me pictures of the venue, and oh my goodness, it's absolutely stunning. The ballroom has crystal chandeliers and marble floors like something out of a movie. You're basically funding a fairy tale, which is so romantic and generous. Each compliment felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest because I knew the truth behind their admiration. Emma had painted me as the perfect sister, willingly sacrificing my future for her happiness, when the reality was theft and betrayal on an unimaginable scale. But the most heartbreaking moment came when Grandma June pulled me aside into the quiet corner near the bay window where she used to read me bedtime stories as a child. Her weathered hands trembled slightly as she held mine, and her cloudy blue eyes filled with tears of genuine gratitude. "Lara, honey, what you're doing for Emma brings back memories of my own wedding day 72 years ago. Your grandfather worked double shifts at the steel mill for months to afford my dress and the church reception. Family sacrifice has always been part of love, and seeing you carry on that tradition makes this old heart sing with pride." Her words shattered something deep inside me because Grandma June represented everything good about family loyalty and sacrifice. She'd lived through the Great Depression, World War II, and decades of financial struggle while maintaining unwavering love for her children and grandchildren. To have her praise me for something I never chose felt like betraying her memory of genuine sacrifice. During dinner, the conversation inevitably turned to wedding planning, with Emma holding court at the head of the table like a bride-to-be queen. She described every detail with theatrical enthusiasm, occasionally glancing at me with a smile that looked grateful on the surface but carried undertones of smug satisfaction. "The florist says our centerpieces will be the most elaborate she's ever created. Each table will have 30-inch arrangements of white orchids, garden roses, and eucalyptus in crystal vases that cost $300 each. With 20 tables, just the centerpieces are $6,000, but Lara said she wanted everything to be perfect." Dad set down his fork and looked directly at me with an expression I'd never seen before. A mixture of pride, concern, and something that looked almost like relief. "Lyra, your mother and I need to talk to you about something important after dinner. What you're doing for Emma is incredible, but we want you to understand why it means so much to our family right now." After the dishes were cleared and the relatives had gone home, Mom, Dad, and I sat in the living room where I'd spent countless evenings doing homework and watching family movies. But tonight, the familiar space felt charged with tension and unspoken secrets. Dad's confession came slowly, each word weighted with shame and fear. "My construction business is failing, sweetheart. The commercial contracts I was counting on fell through when the economy shifted, and residential work isn't enough to cover expenses. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage, and the bank has started foreclosure proceedings." Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue, her usual composure cracking under the pressure of financial terror. "Emma convinced us that your medical degree means guaranteed wealth, that doctors always find ways to manage money successfully. When she suggested using your college fund for the wedding, it seemed like borrowing from someone who could afford to help family during crisis." The pieces of Emma's manipulation started falling into place with sickening clarity. She hadn't just stolen my money impulsively. She'd identified my parents' vulnerability and exploited their desperation to justify theft. By positioning herself as the family member deserving celebration during dark times, she'd transformed her criminal behavior into an act of love and support. Dad continued with growing anguish in his voice. 28 years I've been building that business, hiring local workers, supporting families in our community. Watching it crumble feels like losing my identity and purpose. Emma said the wedding would bring joy to our family when we needed hope most, and your contribution would prove that education and hard work pay off for the next generation. But the most devastating revelation came when Dad explained Emma's long-term financial planning. She's quitting her job at the insurance agency next month to focus on being a mother. With Jake between employment opportunities, they'll need support during the transition period. Emma calculated that your medical income could comfortably cover their rent and expenses while Jake searches for the right career opportunity. Emma had orchestrated a comprehensive plan for financial dependency that extended far beyond the wedding theft. In her mind, my medical degree represented a family resource to be shared rather than personal achievement to be respected. She'd convinced our parents that supporting her lifestyle was my obligation as the successful sibling. Mom's voice was barely a whisper when she added the final piece of the puzzle. Emma also mentioned that medical residents sometimes struggle with loan payments and living expenses during training. She suggested that living with family during residency would help you save money while allowing you to contribute to household expenses as a working adult. The trap was complete and sophisticated in its manipulation. Emma had painted a picture where everyone benefited from her theft. I would save money by living with family during residency. She would receive financial support during early motherhood, and our parents would have help with their mortgage crisis. By positioning the theft as family financial planning, she'd made it nearly impossible for me to object without appearing selfish. As I sat there listening to my parents explain their desperation and gratitude, I realized that confronting Emma's theft meant destroying more than just her wedding plans. It meant shattering my parents' hope during their darkest financial period, disappointing relatives who believed in my generosity, and revealing myself as someone who would prioritize money over family harmony. Emma had weaponized love itself, turning my family's affection into a prison that trapped me between seeking justice and maintaining relationships. The brilliance of her manipulation was that any attempt to expose the truth would make me look cruel and vindictive to people I cared about deeply. But as I drove home that night, one thought kept echoing through my mind. If Emma could steal and lie so casually now, how much worse would her behavior become once she realized that manipulation worked? By staying silent, I might be enabling a pattern of abuse that would ultimately destroy our family more thoroughly than the truth ever could. Back in my apartment, I spread financial documents across my small dining table like a detective building a case against a serial criminal. Bank statements, credit reports, and transaction records painted a picture of systematic theft that was far more extensive and calculated than I'd initially realized. The unauthorized transfers from my savings account dated back 4 months, not just the recent wedding expenses. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 800 there, probably testing to see if I monitored my account closely. When I didn't immediately notice or complain, the withdrawals became bolder and more frequent. Emma had been methodically draining my savings while studying my financial habits and security measures. Phone records showed multiple calls to my bank during business hours, probably claiming to be me and requesting account information or password resets. She'd obtained my social security number, mother's maiden name, and other personal details needed to impersonate me with financial institutions. The credit card fraud was even more sophisticated and devastating. Emma had opened 3 new accounts using my personal information, claiming annual income levels that exceeded what most medical residents actually earned. She'd inflated my earning potential to justify higher credit limits, then immediately maxed out each card with wedding-related purchases. But the most chilling discovery came when I pulled my credit report and found that Emma had attempted to take out a personal loan for $50,000 using my identity and projected medical income as collateral. The application listed my future medical practice as an asset and included forged documents claiming I'd already secured employment with a prestigious hospital group. Fortunately, the loan had been denied due to insufficient credit history at the requested income level, but the attempt revealed Emma's willingness to commit major financial crimes for her wedding fantasy. She wasn't just stealing money I currently had. She was trying to steal money I hadn't even earned yet. I contacted the bank's fraud department and spent 3 hours on hold before reaching a representative who could walk me through the dispute process. Filing a formal complaint required providing evidence of unauthorized access, which meant potentially implicating my mother in the theft since she still had legal account access from when I was a minor. The credit card companies were more straightforward about fraud procedures, but disputing the charges meant filing police reports and potentially pressing criminal charges against Emma. Each customer service representative emphasized that identity theft was a serious crime requiring law enforcement involvement to properly resolve. As I documented the financial damage, I decided to investigate Emma's actual economic situation to understand what had motivated such desperate criminal behavior. Public record searches revealed a disturbing pattern of financial irresponsibility and deception that explained her willingness to commit fraud. Court records showed that Emma had been sued 3 times by previous landlords for unpaid rent, totaling nearly $15,000. Collection agencies were pursuing her for defaulted credit cards, unpaid medical bills, and a car loan that had gone into default 6 months ago. Her credit score was so low that legitimate lending institutions wouldn't approve her for apartment rentals or basic consumer loans. Employment records revealed that Emma had been fired from 2 previous jobs for attendance issues and had quit her current position without giving proper notice. Her claims about leaving work to be a stay-at-home mother were actually covering for the fact that she'd burned bridges in her professional life and couldn't maintain steady employment. But the most disturbing discovery involved her relationship with Jake, the fiancé she claimed was temporarily between jobs. Court records showed that Jake had been arrested twice for gambling-related charges, including writing bad checks to cover casino debts and defaulting on loans from multiple financial institutions. Jake owed over $30,000 to various casinos, loan sharks, and credit card companies. His unemployment wasn't temporary career transition. It was the result of background checks revealing his criminal history and financial problems. Emma's wedding wasn't celebrating true love. It was two financially desperate people trying to escape their problems by accessing my resources. The investigation revealed that Emma had been telling wedding vendors that I personally guaranteed all payments with my medical practice assets as collateral. She'd provided forged documents claiming I was a practicing physician with malpractice insurance and business assets that could cover wedding expenses if primary payments failed. Vendor contracts included clauses holding me legally responsible for outstanding balances, even though I'd never signed any agreements or authorized Emma to use my name. If the wedding proceeded and bills went unpaid, creditors could pursue me professionally and personally for debts I never incurred. The fraud extended beyond financial crime into potential professional destruction. Medical licensing boards require full disclosure of legal and financial problems, including identity theft and fraud charges. If Emma's crimes became part of my permanent record, they could impact my ability to practice medicine, obtain malpractice insurance, or work at reputable hospitals. Emma hadn't just stolen my money. She'd systematically attacked my professional reputation, personal credit, and future earning potential. The wedding fraud was actually part of a larger scheme to make me financially responsible for her debts and lifestyle choices indefinitely. As I compiled evidence folders and prepared to contact law enforcement, I realized that Emma's crimes were far too serious to handle through family mediation or private resolution. She'd crossed legal lines that required formal justice system intervention to protect me from ongoing financial liability and professional damage. The investigation also revealed something else crucial. Emma's pattern of manipulation extended far beyond our current family crisis. She'd been systematically exploiting people's trust and affection for years, leaving a trail of damaged relationships and financial harm wherever she went. My phone rang at 11:30 that night, interrupting my document review. Emma's number flashed on the screen, probably calling to check whether I'd discovered the full extent of her theft. I let it go to voicemail, but she called back immediately, then again 5 minutes later. Finally, I answered just to stop the incessant ringing. Emma's voice was different this time, panicked and desperate instead of manipulatively sweet. "Lara, thank God you answered. There's been a terrible misunderstanding with the wedding venue. They're claiming some problem with payment processing and threatening to cancel everything. I need you to call them right away and confirm that you're guaranteeing all the expenses. This is just a miscommunication that we can clear up quickly." But I knew exactly what had happened. The venue's payment processing had revealed the fraud attempts and forged documents Emma had submitted. The misunderstanding was actually a criminal investigation beginning to unravel her elaborate scheme. "Emma, I never guaranteed any wedding payments, and I never authorized you to use my name or credit for your expenses. What you've done is identity theft and fraud. These aren't misunderstandings. They're crimes that could destroy both our futures." Her response revealed the true depth of her sociopathic manipulation. "Stop being so dramatic, Lara. I'm trying to create something beautiful for our family, and you're obsessing over paperwork and technicalities. The venue just needs reassurance that payment is secure. If you really loved me, you'd help solve this problem instead of creating more drama." That's when I realized Emma genuinely believed her own lies. She'd convinced herself that stealing was family support, that fraud was financial planning, and that my resistance to criminal behavior was selfish cruelty. Reasoning with someone so disconnected from reality was impossible. The phone rang again 30 minutes later, but this time it was the wedding venue's event coordinator calling my number directly. Saturday morning found me standing outside Bella Rosa Bridal Boutique, watching through the large windows as Emma held court in the center of the main salon. She was surrounded by her maid of honor, Two bridesmaids are mother and Jake's sister, all cooing over her elaborate designer gown like she was royalty preparing for coronation. The scene was perfectly orchestrated theater. Emma stood on a circular platform surrounded by 3 mirrors, wearing a $3,500 silk and lace creation that hugged her figure like liquid moonlight. Her entourage sat in plush velvet chairs, sipping complimentary champagne and taking turns offering praise for how radiant and beautiful she looked. I walked through the boutique's front door carrying a manila folder containing bank statements, credit reports, forged documents, and fraud evidence I'd compiled during my investigation. The salon fell quiet as I approached Emma's fitting area, conversations dying, as people sensed tension in the air. "Emma, we need to talk privately about the wedding expenses and how they're being paid for." I kept my voice calm and professional, hoping to handle this diplomatically despite the criminal behavior involved. But Emma's response was immediate and theatrical. "Laura, perfect timing. Everyone's been dying to thank you personally for making this magical day possible. Your generosity is the reason I can have the wedding of my dreams." Her friends and family members turned toward me with smiles and gratitude, clearly believing Emma's lies about my voluntary financial support. I realized this was another calculated move on Emma's part, surrounding herself with witnesses who would pressure me to maintain her false narrative. "Emma, that's not accurate. I never agreed to pay for your wedding, and you've taken money and used credit without my permission. This is fraud and identity theft, not family generosity." I opened the folder and pulled out bank statements showing the unauthorized transfers. The salon atmosphere shifted dramatically as Emma's facade began cracking under the weight of documented evidence. Her maid of honor, Jessica, looked confused and uncomfortable. Jake's sister, Amanda, set down her champagne glass and leaned forward to study the financial documents I was displaying. "These bank records show that money was transferred from my savings account without authorization over a period of 4 months. These credit card statements show new accounts opened in my name without permission. Emma has committed multiple felonies to fund this wedding." Emma's voice rose to a defensive screech that echoed off the boutique's marble floors. "You're being ridiculous, Lara. Families help each other, and you're acting like sharing money is some terrible crime? I never thought my own sister would be so selfish and jealous that she'd try to ruin the happiest day of my life." But her friends weren't stupid, and they'd started examining the evidence with growing concern. Jessica picked up a credit card statement and studied the account opening dates. "Emma, this shows accounts opened in Lara's name with your phone number listed as contact information. How is that possible if Lara authorized everything?" Mom arrived at that moment, probably summoned by Emma's panic text, and immediately tried to mediate the situation. "Girls, this is neither the time nor place for family financial discussions. These are private matters that should be handled at home, not in public where everyone can hear our personal business." But I'd reached my breaking point with family conspiracy and cover-up. "Mom, this stopped being a private family matter when Emma committed federal crimes using my identity. She's forged documents, stolen money, and destroyed my credit rating for a wedding that costs more than most people make in 2 years. The boutique owner, Mrs. Chen, approached our group with obvious concern about the disruption to her business atmosphere. "Ladies, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voices. Other customers are trying to enjoy their shopping experience, and this conversation is making everyone uncomfortable." Emma saw Mrs. Chen's intervention as an opportunity to play victim and gain sympathy. "I'm so sorry about this disruption. My sister is having some kind of emotional breakdown and making wild accusations about our family financial arrangements. She's jealous because I'm getting married and she's still alone." But Mrs. Chen had heard enough of our conversation to understand the real situation. Are you saying that someone has been making unauthorized charges for wedding dresses and accessories because we require credit verification and identification for all purchases over $1,000? I handed Mrs. Chen copies of the credit card statements showing charges to her boutique. Emma has been using credit cards opened fraudulently in my name. I never authorized any purchases from your store, and I've never even been in this boutique before today. Mrs. Chen examined the documents with the expertise of someone who'd dealt with credit fraud before. These account numbers don't match the cards used for your dress purchase, Emma. The name on the credit application was definitely Lara, but the identification provided during purchase was yours. This looks like identity theft. Emma's support system was crumbling as the evidence mounted and witnesses began understanding the scope of her deception. Amanda stood up abruptly, gathering her purse and jacket. I'm not comfortable being involved in this situation. If there's criminal activity happening, I don't want to be associated with it. Jessica followed Amanda's lead, but not before confronting Emma directly. How could you lie to us about this? We've been helping you plan a wedding funded by stealing from your sister. That's not family support. That's criminal behavior that could destroy both your lives. Mom tried desperately to maintain damage control as Emma's lies unraveled in real time. There's obviously been some misunderstanding about account access and permissions. Emma thought she had authorization to use the funds because Lara had expressed support for the wedding plans. But I was done with family diplomacy and protecting Emma from consequences. There was no misunderstanding, Mom. Emma systematically stole my money, opened credit accounts fraudulently, and forged documents to fund her fantasy wedding. She's committed felonies that could result in prison time and destroyed my financial reputation in the process. That's when my phone rang with perfect timing. The caller ID showed Grandview Country Club events, Emma's chosen wedding venue. I answered on speakerphone so everyone could hear the conversation. Miss Thompson, this is Margaret Williams from Grandview Country Club. I'm calling to inform you that we're canceling the wedding reception scheduled for next month. Our payment processing has been flagged by Fraud Prevention Services, and we've discovered forged guarantee documents in our files. Emma's face went white as her fairy tale wedding officially crumbled. The venue continued. We've contacted local police about the fraudulent paperwork, and our legal department will be pursuing charges for attempted theft of services. We strongly recommend you consult with an attorney immediately. The boutique fell completely silent except for the sound of Emma's designer dream dress rustling as she stumbled backward off the fitting platform. Her perfect wedding was officially ruined, destroyed by her own criminal greed and manipulation. She looked around the salon at the shocked faces of her former support system, then turned toward me with pure hatred in her eyes. This is all your fault, Lara. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're destroying the one chance I had to be happy. I hope you're satisfied with ruining my life just because you're too selfish to help your own family during difficult times. But her accusations fell flat in a room full of evidence and witnesses who now understood the truth. Emma hadn't been planning a wedding. She'd been orchestrating an elaborate criminal conspiracy that used family love as cover for systematic theft and fraud. As I gathered my documents and prepared to leave the boutique, Mrs. Chen handed me her business card. You'll need documentation of the fraudulent purchases for your police report. I'll provide whatever evidence law enforcement requires to help resolve this situation. Walking out of that bridal salon, leaving Emma surrounded by the wreckage of her lies and criminal schemes, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, hope that justice might actually be possible. Monday morning found me sitting in the law offices of Patterson and Associates, a firm specializing in identity theft and financial fraud cases. Attorney Sarah Patterson reviewed my compiled evidence with the thoroughness of someone who'd seen too many families destroyed by similar crimes. Miss Thompson, your sister has committed multiple Class D felonies that carry potential sentences of 1 to 5 years imprisonment. Bank fraud, identity theft, forgery, and credit fraud are serious crimes that federal prosecutors take very seriously. The systematic nature of these offenses and the amount of money involved elevates this beyond simple family dispute. Attorney Patterson explained that the fraudulent loan applications and forged vendor guarantees created ongoing legal liability that could haunt my professional career indefinitely. Medical licensing boards conduct thorough background investigations, and any association with financial crimes, even as a victim, requires full disclosure and explanation during application processes. The legal consultation revealed aspects of Emma's crimes I hadn't fully understood. By using my identity to guarantee wedding vendor payments, she'd created potential professional liability that could impact my medical malpractice insurance rates and hospital employment eligibility. Some healthcare institutions avoided hiring physicians with any legal complications, even when they were clearly victims rather than perpetrators. You have 2 options, Attorney Patterson continued. File criminal charges to clear your name and prevent future fraud, or handle this privately through family mediation while accepting ongoing financial and professional risk. Unfortunately, the vendors and creditors won't simply forget about the forged documents because you ask them to. The decision felt impossible because both choices carried devastating consequences. Prosecuting Emma meant destroying family relationships and potentially sending my pregnant sister to prison. But not prosecuting meant accepting professional liability and financial responsibility for crimes I never committed. Attorney Patterson scheduled a meeting with Detective Robert Martinez from the Financial Crimes Unit to discuss the case details and prosecution options. Detective Martinez had 23 years of experience investigating identity theft and fraud, and he'd seen families torn apart by similar crimes countless times. The pattern of behavior documented here suggests sophisticated criminal planning rather than impulsive poor judgment, Detective Martinez explained as he reviewed the evidence folder. Your sister studied your financial habits, tested security measures, and gradually escalated her theft over several months. This wasn't desperate mistake. It was calculated criminal enterprise. The detective's investigation revealed that Emma had researched identity theft techniques online and visited websites offering advice about accessing family members' financial accounts. Her browser history showed searches for how to use relatives' credit and family member bank account access, dating back 6 months. But the most disturbing discovery came when Detective Martinez interviewed Jake about his involvement in the fraud scheme. Jake immediately confessed to helping Emma obtain my personal information and providing false employment verification for credit applications. His cooperation revealed that Emma had planned to continue stealing from me indefinitely to support their lifestyle and pay his gambling debts. Your sister told Jake that medical residents make so much money that you'd never notice small monthly transfers from your accounts, Detective Martinez explained. She positioned this as borrowing from family rather than theft, but the systematic deception and forged documents prove criminal intent rather than financial misunderstanding. The investigation also uncovered Emma's previous victims. 2 former roommates had discovered unauthorized charges on their credit cards after living with Emma, but they'd chosen not to prosecute to avoid confrontation and legal expenses. A previous boyfriend found that Emma had accessed his bank account and withdrawn money for shopping sprees, but he'd broken up with her instead of pressing charges. Serial financial predators often target people who love them because family members and romantic partners are less likely to prosecute, Detective Martinez observed. Your sister has been refining her manipulation techniques for years, using emotional relationships to cover criminal behavior. As we prepared arrest warrants and formal charges, my phone rang constantly with calls from family members begging me to reconsider prosecution. Aunt Patricia called crying, Uncle Robert left voicemails about family loyalty, and Mom sent desperate text messages about Emma's pregnancy and mental health. But the most manipulative contact came from Emma herself. She showed up at my apartment Tuesday evening, accompanied by Mom and Dad carrying sonogram photos and wearing maternity clothes designed to emphasize her vulnerable condition. "Laura, please don't destroy our family over money that can be repaid over time," Emma pleaded through carefully practiced tears. "I made mistakes, but I was desperate and scared about providing for my baby. Pregnant women sometimes make poor decisions due to hormonal changes and emotional stress." Mom and Dad flanked Emma like protective barriers, their faces showing exhaustion and desperation from days of family crisis management. Dad's voice cracked with emotion as he tried one final appeal to my conscience. "Sweetheart, sending Emma to prison won't bring your money back, but it will destroy 3 generations of our family. Think about what this will do to your unborn niece or nephew growing up with a mother who has a criminal record. There has to be another way to resolve this situation." Emma had coached them well, presenting her crimes as pregnancy-related poor judgment rather than systematic criminal behavior. She'd positioned herself as a vulnerable, expectant mother who deserved mercy and understanding rather than justice and accountability. But something about Emma's performance seemed off, and I found myself studying her appearance more carefully. The maternity clothes looked new and unused. The sonogram photos seemed generic rather than personalized, and her supposedly emotional tears dried awfully quickly when she thought no one was watching. Detective Martinez had provided me with his direct phone number in case Emma attempted to intimidate or manipulate me during the investigation. I excused myself to the bathroom and called him quietly to report the family intervention attempt. "Miss Thompson, bring those sonogram photos to my office tomorrow morning," Detective Martinez requested. "Serial fraudsters often create false medical emergencies to gain sympathy and avoid prosecution. We need to verify every claim your sister makes during this process." That night after my parents and Emma left, I spent hours researching online sonogram images and comparing them to the photos Emma had provided. The pictures looked suspiciously similar to stock images available on pregnancy websites and forum discussions about miscarriage support. Wednesday morning's meeting with Detective Martinez confirmed my worst suspicions. The sonogram photos were indeed generic images downloaded from an online pregnancy loss support forum where women shared ultrasound pictures to help others cope with grief and trauma. "Your sister has been lying about the pregnancy to manipulate family sympathy and complicate prosecution," Detective Martinez revealed. "She stole these images from women who suffered real pregnancy losses, which adds another layer of cruelty to her overall deception. Emma's fake pregnancy was the final proof I needed that she was beyond redemption through family intervention or private resolution. Someone willing to exploit other women's pregnancy losses for personal gain had crossed moral boundaries that made her dangerous to everyone around her." The investigation also revealed that Emma's relationship with Jake was entirely performance-based rather than genuine romance. Jake confessed that Emma had pursued him specifically because his gambling addiction made him vulnerable to financial manipulation. She'd promised to help him pay casino debts using money stolen from me, making him an accomplice in her criminal schemes. They're both facing felony charges that carry mandatory minimum sentences due to the amount of money involved, Detective Martinez explained. "Federal sentencing guidelines don't allow for family relationship considerations when crimes involve sophisticated fraud and identity theft. As I signed formal complaint documents and prepared for trial testimony, I realized that Emma had forced me to choose between protecting my professional future and maintaining family relationships. Her crimes were too serious and systematic to resolve through private mediation regardless of the personal cost to our family dynamics. But I also understood that justice wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about preventing future victims and establishing boundaries that protected innocent people from predatory behavior. Emma had shown no genuine remorse for her crimes, only anger at being caught and fear of facing consequences. By the end of that week, arrest warrants had been issued for both Emma and Jake. The legal process was officially beginning, and there was no turning back from the choice I'd made to prioritize truth and justice over family harmony and emotional manipulation. The trial took place 4 months later in the federal courthouse downtown, where I testified for 3 hours about Emma's systematic fraud and identity theft. Facing her across that courtroom, seeing her in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit, I felt no satisfaction or revenge, only sadness for the relationship we could have had if she'd chosen honesty over manipulation. Emma and Jake both received felony convictions and 3-year sentences that included prison time, community service, and mandatory financial counseling. The restitution orders required them to repay every dollar they'd stolen, plus interest and legal fees, which would take decades given their limited earning potential. But the most important outcome wasn't punishment. It was the pattern of revelation that followed their arrest. Other family members began sharing stories of Emma's financial manipulation they'd hidden for years to protect family harmony. Cousin Jennifer admitted that Emma had stolen cash from her purse during family gatherings. Uncle Robert revealed that Emma had borrowed tools from his construction company and sold them instead of returning them. Even Jake's family came forward with evidence of Emma's deception. His sister Amanda testified that Emma had convinced Jake to steal money from his grandmother's Social Security checks to pay for their dating expenses. The scope of Emma's criminal behavior extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. Mom and Dad struggled initially with accepting the truth about Emma's character, but mandatory family therapy sessions helped them understand how manipulation and enablement had damaged our entire family system. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, our family counselor, explained how Emma had exploited everyone's love and loyalty to cover increasingly serious criminal behavior. Emma learned that emotional manipulation was more effective than honest communication for getting what she wanted, Dr. Rodriguez observed during one particularly difficult session. Your family's willingness to prioritize harmony over accountability inadvertently enabled her criminal escalation. Dad's construction business recovered through legitimate financial planning and small business loans rather than relying on family members' resources. He learned to separate his professional struggles from his parental responsibilities, rebuilding his company through honest work and community relationships rather than expecting financial rescue from his children. Mom returned to school to finish her nursing degree, something she'd abandoned decades earlier, to focus on raising children. The family crisis had shown her the importance of financial independence and professional identity beyond motherhood. She flourished in her studies and eventually specialized in trauma counseling for families affected by financial abuse. My own healing process involved establishing clear boundaries with family members while maintaining loving relationships with those who respected my choices and professional goals. I completed my medical residency in psychiatry and specialized in treating patients who'd experienced manipulation and financial abuse within family relationships. The experience with Emma's fraud gave me unique insight into the psychological dynamics of family-based financial crimes. I understood how love could be weaponized, how trust could be exploited, and how victims often blamed themselves for criminals' choices. My personal experience made me a more empathetic and effective therapist for patients dealing with similar betrayals. During my 4th year of residency, I received a letter from Emma written during her community service at a nonprofit organization that helped low-income families with financial planning and debt management. The letter was different from her previous communications. No manipulation, no self-pity, just honest acknowledgement of the harm she'd caused. Lara, I spent 3 years blaming everyone else for my choices and refusing to accept responsibility for the pain I caused our family, Emma wrote. Working with families who struggle financially through no fault of their own has shown me how cruel and selfish my behavior was. I stole money that represented years of your hard work and sacrifice, then made you look like the villain for seeking justice. Her letter continued with specific apologies for individual acts of deception and manipulation. She acknowledged faking the pregnancy, stealing the sonogram photos, and lying to family members about my involvement in her wedding planning. Most importantly, she accepted full responsibility for her crimes without expecting forgiveness or relationship restoration. I know that sorry isn't enough to repair the damage I caused, and I don't expect you to trust me or include me in your life going forward, Emma concluded. But I wanted you to know that your decision to press charges probably saved me from becoming someone even worse. Prison and counseling forced me to confront my behavior in ways that family intervention never could have achieved. Emma's letter arrived during my final month of residency as I was preparing to start my own practice, specializing in family trauma and financial abuse recovery. Reading her words, I realized that justice had served its intended purpose. Not punishment for its own sake, but accountability that created opportunity for genuine change and healing. I never responded to Emma's letter directly, but I kept it as a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their destructive behavior. Setting boundaries and demanding accountability isn't cruelty. It's respect for both yourself and the other person's potential for growth. 5 years after the trial, I established the Thompson Foundation for Financial Abuse Prevention, using income from my continued software patent royalties to fund education programs and legal assistance for family financial crime victims. The foundation helps people navigate the complex legal and emotional challenges of prosecuting relatives while providing therapy and support services for healing relationships damaged by manipulation. My work with the foundation has shown me that Emma's crimes weren't unique or unusual. Thousands of families struggle with financial abuse, identity theft, and manipulation by relatives who exploit love and loyalty for personal gain. The difference between families that heal and families that remain trapped often comes down to whether victims choose accountability over enabling. Today, I practice psychiatry in a clinic that serves patients from all socioeconomic backgrounds, but my specialty focus remains helping people recover from family-based financial trauma. My personal experience with Emma's betrayal gives me credibility and insight that purely academic training couldn't provide. Mom and Dad have rebuilt their lives on foundations of honesty and mutual respect, rather than financial dependency and emotional manipulation. Dad's construction company now employs 12 people and specializes in affordable housing projects for working families. Mom graduated with honors from nursing school and works in pediatric trauma care, helping children who've experienced abuse and neglect. Our family dinners now happen monthly instead of weekly, but the conversations are genuine rather than performative. We've learned to discuss difficult topics honestly instead of avoiding conflict through superficial harmony. The relationships feel healthier and more authentic than they ever did when we were enabling Emma's dysfunction. Emma was released from prison after serving 18 months of her sentence contingent on completing financial counseling and maintaining steady employment. She works at the same nonprofit where she served community service helping families develop budgets and financial plans. Her supervisor reports that she's become one of their most effective counselors because her personal experience with financial crime gives her unique insight into the psychology of money and manipulation. We haven't spoken directly since the trial, but I occasionally receive updates about her progress through our parents. She's living in a supervised halfway house, attending addiction counseling for shopping and gambling behaviors, and slowly rebuilding relationships with family members who are willing to accept her efforts at making amends. The most important lesson I learned through this experience is that real love sometimes requires allowing people to face consequences for their choices rather than protecting them from accountability. Emma's criminal behavior escalated because our family prioritized immediate harmony over long-term healing and growth. Justice isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about creating space for truth healing and genuine change to occur. By refusing to enable Emma's manipulation and choosing legal accountability over family loyalty, I helped break a cycle of dysfunction that was destroying all our relationships. My software patents continue generating income that supports my medical practice and foundation work, proving that honest achievement and hard work create more sustainable wealth than theft and manipulation ever could. The money Emma stole represented more than financial loss. It symbolized years of dedication, sacrifice, and responsible planning that couldn't be replaced or replicated through criminal shortcuts. Sometimes the most difficult choice is also the most loving one. Standing up for truth and justice protected not only my professional future, but also created opportunity for my entire family to heal and grow beyond the dysfunction that had trapped us for years. To anyone facing similar betrayal by family members, remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish, seeking justice isn't cruel, and protecting yourself isn't abandoning people you love. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is refusing to participate in their self-destruction and demanding that they face the consequences of their choices with dignity and accountability. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what you knew was right? How do you think you would handle discovering that someone you trusted had been stealing from you for months? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and insights help create a community where we can support each other through difficult family situations. Thank you so much for listening to my story and for being part of this community where we share real experiences and learn from each other's journeys. I hope that sharing my experience helps others facing similar challenges know that they're not alone and that choosing justice over enabling can lead to healing and growth for everyone involved. Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges and finding strength in difficult situations, and share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of boundaries and accountability in family relationships. Your support helps these stories reach people who need to know that healing and justice are possible even in the most painful family circumstances.